Hello internet, Taliesin here, and today we're talking home. And obviously home means different things for different people, doesn't it? Like a home might be a place you own, or a place you rent, or if you're born after 1981, it's probably your parents' house, let's be honest. But in this video, we are specifically going to be looking at home cities in World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth. And specifically, the faction capitals for Night Elves and Forsaken. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Taliesin, I already know about those cities. The Night Elves live in that place on top of the tree that I went to once at level 10 and died because I fell off the edge, and the Forsaken live in Undercity, where I went to once at level 10 and died because I couldn't find my way out of its stupid, ridiculous corridors that never end. And when I say died, it would probably be more accurate to say that actually I had to delete the character, because seriously, that guy was gone. He was clearly never getting out of there. I had no choice. But what I'm saying is, I don't need you to tell me about those two cities. Well, you know what? Actually, maybe you do, because I don't think it's too much of a spoiler when I say that in Battle for Azeroth, we're about to see a bit of a shake-up in the status quo. Because for whatever reason, Teldrassil is going to find itself up in flames, which is probably not ideal Night Elf living conditions, and Undercity will be lost to the Alliance, which basically means that we're going to have a lot of homeless Forsaken and Night Elves to rehouse. And with the Horde calling dibs on Kalimdor and the Alliance claiming the Eastern Kingdoms, both of those races are going to have to find their way to a whole different continent as well. So the question is, where will they end up? Because yes, fine, it's pretty likely that the answer is nowhere really. We'll see the odd refugee in Stormwind or Orgrimmar, and that'll be that. Some would argue that 2 less empty capitals would actually be good for the game, and we're getting new capitals in Zandalar and Kultiris anyway. But the thing is, Blizzard have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here to really evolve the world and have some fun with old locations. And I also want to look at a way that they could use the displacement of these two populations to create some really exciting and, for WoW, groundbreaking new gameplay too with regards to the upcoming Battlefronts. So join us as we ask, what cities could the Forsaken and the Night Elves call home next, okay? Go, 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 go. If the Forsaken are being pushed out of Lordaeron and the Night Elves hot-footing it out of Darnassus, then the answer of where each homeless people should head is a pretty obvious one on the face of it. Why don't they just swap? It's an easy and ready-made solution, and one that would appeal to both factions too. The Alliance moving back into Lordaeron would be off the scale emotional for many players, especially if Sister of Arthas Kalia Menethil noped out of the Priest Order Hall and took up her birthright as leader. I'm sure she wouldn't mind populating the place with Night Elves, considering all her old mates are either dead or undead. And I'm pretty sure that Sylvanas would find grim amusement in filling the Night Elves ex-home with Forsaken, considering the ancient animosity between those two. But alas, I don't think a straight town swap is really on the cards. Whereas we don't yet know all of the details of the upcoming hostilities, it looks like both of these cities are about to take severe beatings that are going to leave them pretty much inhospitable. Datamine broadcast text from the Battle for Lordaeron scenario suggests that Sylvanas orders some pretty heavy use of plague bombs on the area as they retreat, which, as well as having disturbing echoes of the events at the Wrathgate 10 years ago, yes, I know, the Wrathgate was 10 years ago. When you saw that cinematic for the first time, it's quite possible that George W. Bush was still the president, and if that makes you feel old, well, that's because you are really old, sorry. It's also pretty much the ultimate we're not getting our deposit back and we don't care gesture. And Darnassus, well, Darnassus is on fire, isn't it? That place is not going to be fit for anyone to live in, even people that are already dead. I mean, the Forsaken don't have many requirements for where they live, to be honest, but when it comes to house hunting, being on fire is one of their few deal breakers, unfortunately. So either way, it looks like if our new refugees are going to find new cities of their own, we're going to have to start getting a little bit more imaginative. Okay, so having said that, this choice isn't all that imaginative at all. Easily the most popular answer when we put this question to our Twitter followers last week, and indeed a possibility that we've already talked about in 2 different videos on this channel. But come on, the Night Elves settling in Gilneas would be super awesome, and you know it. Partly because of how it would be awesome in so many different ways. 1, it would actually allow Blizzard to bring the city up to date with the current time period, rather than be stuck in some weird Cataclysm starting zone limbo. 2, players could finally hang out in one of the coolest and most atmospheric areas in the whole game, which is something they've always wanted, like forever. 3, there is genuinely interesting narrative potential here. Gilneas taking in the Night Elf refugee population makes total sense lore-wise after the help the Night Elves have given Gilneas in the past. 4, it would lay the foundations for the allied race that I'm still convinced needs to be a thing, that of the Night Elf Worgen. 5, the RP in that place would be off the scale. And 6, we might all finally remember that Gen is actually an actual king of an actual place, because he'll have a real-life place to be king of, rather than just hanging around Stormwind the whole time being a very good boy. Having Gilneas become an active city isn't so much killing 2 birds with 1 stone as killing all the birds with an automatic stone-throwing death cannon. It's perfect, it's obvious, and to be honest, if Blizzard don't take this opportunity to make it happen now, then you have to wonder if it'll ever happen at all. So basically what we're saying, Blizzard, is make it happen. We talk talk a lot about the Alliance reclaiming Lordaeron, but really, who are they actually reclaiming it from? It's implied that the majority of the Forsaken characters who populate the Undercity and the surrounding areas are actually those original Lordaeron citizens killed in the Scourge invasion and raised by Sylvanas. So when the Alliance take Lordaeron, they are actually taking it from the Lordaerons, which is a bit cheeky really. How fitting would it be then if the next place the Forsaken called home is the one place guaranteed to piss the Alliance off the most? As if Jaina doesn't have a big enough hate boner on for the Horde already, how fitting would it be if we just picked that scab a little bit more and made Theramore the new Forsaken capital? I mean, yes, Theramore is technically just an irradiated hole in the ground right now, but as we've already covered, the Forsaken have pretty low standards when it comes to living accommodations, so I'm pretty sure they'd be okay with it. And anyway, even if it is a little bleak to set up shop on the scene of one of the most memorable war crimes in recent WoW history, it would be totally worth it just to see Jaina's reaction. And look, I say this as the biggest Jaina fan there is, but come on, it would be funny, wouldn't it? It's the ultimate dick move, totally appropriate to the Horde versus Alliance theme of Battle for Azeroth, and actually, joking aside, it makes sense for the Forsaken practically too. Theramore is a strategically placed port that the Horde would do well to protect, and furthermore, there's a whole town's worth of really top-draw soldiers under that rubble just waiting to be raised into the undead ranks, so it's a win-win, or you know, a lose-lose, depending on your point of view. Sorry, Jaina. One of the main problems for the Night Elves with Teldrassil getting torched is that it creates a bit of a problem with regards to their #1 hobby, sleeping. Getting thrown out of Kalimdor is especially hard on Malfurion and the Druids because it severely impacts their ability to access the Emerald Dream and do their druidy things there. Granted, this might not turn out to be such a problem for Malfurion because, you know, and I don't want to sound alarmist or anything here, but he's been awfully quiet in the BFA Alpha so far. In fact, he's nowhere to be seen, and if I was the kind of person to speculate on this kind of thing, which as you all know I'm definitely not, but if I were, then there'd be a part of me right now that might be considering the possibility Tyrande might just have to be on the lookout for a new husband. That's all I'm saying. It's probably nothing. That's all I'm saying. Don't worry about it. If the Night Elves were up for building an entirely new home in the Eastern Kingdoms rather than squatting in an existing capital though, they could do a lot worse than Duskwood. Well, for a start, it's got lots of lovely trees, and Night Elves love trees. And look, hardly any of these trees are on fire, so you know, that's already an improvement on Teldrassil. It's near to their allies in Stormwind and Ironforge. Oh, and there's a pretty handy portal to the Emerald Dream here too. Granted, once every 10 years or so, a massive dragon comes through it that'll need killing, but if they don't mind that, then Twilight Grove could be perfect for them to build a new home around. This is probably the most unlikely suggestion of the lot, seeing as it would mean the creation of a whole ton of new art assets, but it wouldn't have to be a whole new city, just the bare bones of a settlement under construction. And there would be something really cool about the Night Elves building a new capital from scratch. Look, there's even a nice spot over here for Malfurion's grave. I mean, house, I meant his house. Okay, so I admit it's a bit left field, but here we have an already made, underutilized city, ideally placed for a fleeing Forsaken population to get to very easily on their way out of the Eastern Kingdoms. A phased version of it has just been created for use by new Nightborn characters, so why not build on that? Okay, so aesthetically rotting jawless zombie people aren't the most obvious match for Purple Town with its pristine arcane radiance, but tough shit, you're in the Horde now, pointy ears, time to get with the program. And actually there's an argument that a Forsaken district is exactly what Suramar needs after 10,000 years of isolation. The undead would bring with them an important gateway into the outside world that the Nightborn still know very little about. So the undead district could be where you'd find the new Suramar auction house, bank and stables. It is, I grant you, an unlikely union. But aren't unlikely unions what the Horde is all about? Despite how new Suramar is as an in-game location and the Nightborn are as a playable race, there is something pleasingly old school about the idea of these proud and independent elves opening up a portion of their home in welcome to the displaced undead multitudes, their new allies. I don't know, I think I like the idea precisely because of how seemingly mismatched these two races are. It's like Tango and Cash, or Turner and Hooch. Who knows, perhaps after a bad start, these two races from different sides of the tracks could end up both learning something through the magic of friendship. Or at least killing some alliance scum together, whatever. And it's here that we get onto the topic that I really wanted to discuss in this video. Because while it's fun to talk about where the Night Elves and Forsaken might end up and the narrative potential those places could open, like we say at the beginning of this video, I find it pretty unlikely that any of the possibilities we've touched on so far will actually come to pass. And no, not even Gilneas, which hurts, I know, but there we go. But it doesn't mean that those two races won't find a new home in Battle for Azeroth, and it doesn't mean that that search for a new home doesn't need to have an interesting, lasting, and interactive impact on the events of the next expansion. expansion, because I think that Blizzard have got a chance to do something really special here, and Stormguard Keep is a tantalizing glimpse of what could be if they have the ambition to really push things. Okay, so we know that Stormguard is the location of one of the upcoming multiplayer faction v faction Warfront instances, which are supposed to be a major feature in Battle for Azeroth. Warfronts have been described by the devs so far as being like playing a Warcraft 3 battle where your player character is one of the hero units. And that seems pretty apt. Teams of players will gather resources to create troops and buildings to win dominance over their counterpart. This won't be something that you can queue for at any time. Instead, Warfronts are an event which is on presumably some sort of a schedule, maybe a little bit like Liege Invasions or the Mage Tower. And if that all sounds a little bit vague, well, yes, it is. And it certainly seems at the moment that Blizzard themselves still don't quite know how these things will work. But whatever way things end up, how long the matches last, how many players they involve, what the victory criteria are, how often they're available, Warfronts will live and die on one detail. What are the rewards? Because, well, Transmog apparently, and Azurite obviously, but we have the spammable and much easier island invasions for that. So what else can Battlefronts offer us? Well, how about a permanent impact on the world? Let's look at Stormguard Keep as an example. Here we have an ex-human capital with a rich history that is now run amok with Forsaken. It's an important strategic location that would give a major advantage to whichever faction controlled it. Obviously, that's why it's a location for Battlefronts in the first place. But what if, instead of just being a location that keeps popping up regularly throughout Battle for Azeroth without anything ever getting resolved, what if we, as players, actually do get to decide who wins it? In the Call of the Scarab mini-holiday, each server gets to donate resources over a limited time frame to win the right for their faction flag to fly over Anchorage for an entire year. What if the Battle for Stormguard is only playable for, say, 3 months, and in that time, every victory for Alliance or Horde throughout the entire region, so North America or Europe or whatever, goes towards deciding which faction ends up capturing that stronghold for keeps? How awesome would it be if every time you took part in a battlefront, it wasn't just some Azurite at stake, which you can get literally anywhere else, but also the eventual fate of the entire city? And you could make different Warfronts part of the patch cycle. So say Stormguard Keep is the first one at launch. It's up for 3 months, during which time we all fight in it, and every time we do, contribute to our faction's unseen score. And at the end of those 3 months, Blizzard reveals which faction has then won Stormguard, with an awesome accompanying cinematic to match, showing either the Alliance or Horde claiming victory as appropriate. Stormguard is then altered to reflect the winning faction and becomes a proper low-key capital for that faction from then on. And then with the next major patch, the next Warfront opens up, but this time the location we're fighting for is, say, Feathermoon's stronghold, and the same process starts again. How awesome would that be? Not only would it give Warfronts a real purpose above and beyond a gimmicky gameplay mode with the same old rewards, but it would allow players to have genuine agency in the unfolding war, rather than just passively experiencing the story like we usually do. Which faction ends up winning each Warfront location needn't impact on the overall narrative of the expansion, but it would allow players to feel like they've actually contributed something to the shape and landscape of the battle. Blizzard, you say you want us to fight for our faction in this expansion, so let us fight for them. Let us make a real difference in how this war pans out. Let us actually win or lose the battle for Stormguard, or for Feathermoon, or for wherever else, because that would be awesome and meaningful and really not that hard to do. Let me contribute to the Alliance winning back Stormguard with every Warfront battle that I win, and let me feel a genuine pride in my efforts when I then walk round it in patch 8.2 and see the Night Elves making themselves at home. I genuinely think this is a brilliant idea, and one that we're going to explore the possibilities of in other parts of the game in future videos, because I think that Battle for Azeroth and the strong emphasis on faction identity that it brings could be the perfect opportunity for Blizzard to finally give the players some meaningful agency in how Azeroth evolves. It's something that they've been very carefully dabbling with up until now, but this expansion should be when they go all out, in my opinion. So what do you think, guys? Where do you reckon the Forsaken and Night Elves will end up? Is it a case of there just being more pointy ears in Stormwind than usual, or will we find them settling in genuinely new capitals on their respective new continents? And what do you think about our idea for Warfronts? Could it work? Would it be something that would capture your imagination in the next expansion and make you want to play them? Let us know in the comments below. And thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give their actual real-life money to make all our work possible. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Anne Stickney. No, my name is Taliesin from me and Evitel. Until next time, cheerio.